You're listening to The Raz.
Hey, welcome to The Raz. We just got a new intro. What does everybody think? What do you think?
I think it's sexy. What do you guys think? I think it's good.
Cool.
We're moving up in the world. We got an intro now.
An intro, doing podcasting,
Social media now,
addiction.
blowing up, going straight to the top, into the stratosphere.
Today's topic is relationships and addiction.
So when we say relationships, we're talking about all kinds of relationships: romantic, family, friends, employer, all of the above. Addiction and its impact on.
So, who wants to start? Don't all, let's get a little personal, baby.
It's going to get intense.
It's going to get a little intense.
It's going to get emotional.
I'm going to admit to some things that I've never
Shame.
really talked about.
Hashtag shame.
Hashtag shame.
So we all know this is an emotional topic. It's an important topic. So I guess
What do you think? What do you think about relationships and addiction? I mean, do they go hand in hand? Are they like?
God, I know my own addiction has impacted my relationships immensely.
But do you think they go hand in hand?
Well, I don't think they go hand in hand, but there's a cause.
When she's nagging you, it makes it better.
There's a cause-effect relationship for sure. So I mean, just diving right in here with romantic partners. I mean, when I look back, I feel honestly sad. There's a lot of regret there.
Me too.
I know I've let a lot of good people slip through my fingers. I've pissed a lot of good relationships away. And God, I mean, just so many different things come to mind. Even before my, I guess, more serious binges started after my mom passed, I can see the dysfunction now when I look back in retrospect. Like in my early 20s, mid 20s, I was with one person primarily through my early 20s and mid 20s. And even then it was like the relationship was built on like that. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like drinking every weekend, partying, and then
Just kidding.
But it really started to manifest like the toxic behaviors.
Right.
And the tragedy of it is that I became conditioned to so much negative shit that I unfortunately carried that, it seemed like, from relationship to relationship. I mean, how was that for you?
Well, I think the alcohol for me really creates bizarre situations. Emotionally, I mean, I'm surprised it's legal. Again, I think that the alcohol industry really hides behind that slick image, drink responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck does it even mean?
I don't know.
It should be like vodka. Good luck. That should be their if alcohol ads were honest.
Whiskey.
yeah.
Get ready to fight.
Well, I think in my relationships, family and intimate relationships have been affected the most.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really say much about the employers because other than, sure, I've had some moments where maybe I've sent texts I didn't mean to while drunk to an employer. But other than that, where it affects me the most is like family and intimate relationships because my family, my brothers hate me, and they don't like me because of my history with drinking. I've been that guy to get drunk, come home, and cause chaos in the family,
Just
in the
lash
home.
out.
Well, I mean, to a point where cops had to be called. I had to get
The law was
called off.
involved.
So I mean, and that's alcohol for you. I mean, you tell me who doesn't get super emotional when their intent is to get drunk to feel better about something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just a couple of things that come to mind for me that I jotted down. I mean, God, money is one, attention, communication, intimacy, third party family, like their family, their opinion and perception of me and my behavior, and then just toxic fucking habits that you get into.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I don't know a single fucking girl or their family member who's ever liked me. Seems like in that respect, they're more judgmental because it's their kids. You know what I mean? So they
Yeah.
have higher standards set in place for their children. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you're just dating their daughter or son, they're probably not gonna like you, or they're probably gonna judge you. Be more hard.
Well, you're already
harsh.
going to be subjected to the third degree.
And that's
anyway.
That's
know
why
what I
you
mean?
really show them like what's up by drinking.
God. Yeah, great first impression. But no, I mean, money, obviously, any addiction takes its toll on the wallet. And I know that I diverted a lot of money, pissed a lot of money away. I don't even want to think about it and put a price tag on it because it's probably just embarrassing and it would just make me feel like shit. But I just, holy shit, man. I mean,
Maybe you can go into like a specific.
if you add the cost up of really how much drinking I have done, I mean, again, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, going out and not just the lighter portion of it, like when I was just binging alone. Hell, that was the cheap part of it, you know?
Getting drunk on a budget.
The expensive part really was going out to bars and going out and trying to make like a social life out of it. I mean, it was just, it's unmaintainable, you know?
Yeah, you go to like a bar for a night, and then at some point you end up blacking out, and then the next day when you come to, that's when you realize how much you spent the night before.
Oh yeah, you don't even realize it because you think you're Donald fucking Trump when you're at the bar and you're just like, oh hey, you know, drinks on me, get everyone around, you know.
Yeah.
And then you look in your wallet the next morning and it's like,
Well, yeah, no, I do that. So like all everybody that thinks I'm cool, but then I just like, they come back into the room like, where's Ryan after the shot?
yeah,
I'm fucking gone.
yeah,
After I ordered everybody around. Yeah, round on me. Let's get the nicest, the most expensive shit possible. And then I'm going to leave after
Yeah.
I take my shot. So,
So it definitely has a corrosive effect. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. I think, again, the real tragedy of it is the habits that I think I allowed myself to get conditioned to. And, you know, just basic things like communication, getting into healthy habits. It just seemed like that was almost impossible because so much of the relationship was built on getting fucked up, you know? And it's like, that's the only way you know how to function. And that becomes really the sad part about it is, okay, well, we don't do anything else. So let's just go drink, you know?
yeah.
And
All
that's
right,
a
well,
really
let's go drink.
unfortunate thing.
You're making me thirsty. No, I'm just kidding. Well, did you have anything else? Did you want to go into anything specific as part of this segment?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to romantic relationships, I know that it's also affected things like intimacy. For me, we said we
I'm
were gonna
sorry, impotency?
we we said we were gonna get
Intimacy.
personal.
Gotcha.
So I almost felt like I have never felt completely relaxed in myself in a relationship, just from my upbringing, my childhood, wherever this feeling of not being good enough from wherever it's come from. And I carried that with me. And so I never fully felt like I could relax. I always had this guard up. And the alcohol was a way for me to feel relaxed, feel comfortable with myself, project this
And get
out
into fights. No, sorry.
project this outward appearance of confidence when that confidence was really never there to begin with. It was a lack of confidence. I had self-esteem issues, anxiety issues, depression issues, and those are all very tough things to deal with. So I think the alcohol was a way for me to mask those problems. All that shit was still there. It was just under the surface. It's like tuck it away with some booze.
Yeah.
Cover
yeah.
it up.
Oh yeah.
Because so much of society is focused upon the superficiality of what's on the surface. Just like what can I project as my life.
Yeah.
Almost like what social media has become. What can I show the world? Oh, my life is so fucking awesome. Like, I do this, I do that, and blah, 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 blah. The reality is, I was depressed. I was down. I was, not in a good place mentally. So I was unable to function.
Right.
So I guess with romantic relationships, I guess that's primarily what I have to contribute. Also, real quick, now that it comes to mind, is just the impression that their family had of me, like in my more, like recent relationships, was like, I would fuck up, show my ass, go on a binge, and, create this kind of persona. And then they, just the behavior, their opinion of me changed or whatever, and then they thought this, oh, you're a piece of shit, you're this, you're an alcoholic, you're a son of a bitch, blah 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 blah. And unfortunately nowadays it's stigmatized. People think this and they're not going to change their opinion, or they have very old outdated opinions, and that just became kind of the tragedy of it for me.
Yeah, that's just the like a reality of addiction. Is that it's a disease that's not like any other disease. You got other diseases such as cancer or, something to that degree. And the reaction you get from people is, the empathy and sympathy, but not so with the alcoholic addict. We end up getting treated like shit by people, and others that don't understand addiction or don't know what it's like to go through that thought process end up really judging you severely. And that's even true for addicts. I mean, I don't I couldn't tell you like how many times I've judged other people's addiction by basically judging them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I would, let me give you an example, okay? I'm thinking of a specific example, but I'm just not wanting to come out and say it. But my ex, Chelsea, who is on drugs, or maybe I should just say my ex. I don't know if Chelsea Mankey, Chelsea Ann Mankey, inmate number 123. I ridicule and judge the shit out of her for using methamphetamines, but I don't have an issue with that. And so I wonder if it just simply comes down to that. Like people who don't get it just aren't ever going to, and that's addiction for you. You're a dick that's getting shunned.
Pretty much.
And that's what that comes down to. But as far as romantic partners go, with alcoholism, it's ruined all my relationships, all my intimate relationships. I mean, I am a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like I've said before. So when I drink, it's unpredictable on what the outcome's going to be. And I've been verbally abusive and even has gone as far as some physical, but nothing too crazy. I don't like go around like trying to pick fist fights with my girlfriend. But I mean, it's gotten to a point where it starts verbal, and then both of us are out of
corrosive.
hand.
Yeah, it just
I mean, but it's all tied back to the drinking, and that's really the culprit of these God damn it of these debacles.
The really sad part for me was thinking that if there wasn't some level of dysfunction in the relationship, that something was wrong. So if we weren't in some kind of crisis, then something must be off. And that's just the unfortunate sick thinking that I allowed myself to get into, was just, if things are not topsy-turvy and just fucking crazy and completely illogical, then they're not logical. And that was just the thought process that I allowed myself to get into, was just, well, why are things normal? They shouldn't be,
Yeah.
And again, that's a really unfortunate thing, is I've carried that baggage really, just now, like in my early 30s. It's like finally I'm waking up and I just feel like, oh my God, I can look back and just see the truth about my own behaviors and my own fuck ups. And it's like, again, it just makes me sad, because I've let, who knows if the relationship itself would have worked out, but I'll never know, I'll never know, because I was always blinded by the booze and blinded by, mental health issues and depression and anxiety, and trying to mask that and trying to come off as normal and trying to come off like, oh, everything is fine. I'm fully functional. I'm doing this and I'm doing that, when I was really suffering. I mean, I was doing a lot of my suffering in silence. I wasn't reaching out. So suppose that's really all I can think of when it comes to romantic partners. Family is another big one for me. So obviously my mom is deceased and I'm kind of estranged with my father. And I think one of the biggest issues that came up for me in my own addiction was sort of their lack of understanding. I think, again, so much of it is stigmatized and so much of it is outdated thinking. So a lot of the shit that I got was finger pointing and just kind of like, you need to do this, you need to do that. Everyone was trying to throw advice at me, and it's like, it was just overwhelming, and I'm the type of person, like, if you back me into a corner, I'm just going to resist you, So it was very rarely, like only on one or two occasions, can I really remember someone ever approaching me and being like, you know what, dude, like, how are you doing? Like, how are the meetings coming along? Like, how is your well-being? It was always like, oh, well, why do you keep doing this? Like, why do you keep having these relapses? Don't you see the destruction in your life? Didn't you learn the last time, idiot? It was like that kind of shit that would just make things worse for me. It made me more negative, and it made me internalize a lot of negative shit. And that became almost the reason why I would like do it again,
Damn.
And it was just a vicious cycle, a self-destructive cycle. And, a lot of the advice, again, was stigmatized. My father is very religious. I'm not. So of course, we would clash, because he would be like, yo, you need God, you need this, you need that, you need the Bible, you need to go to church, blah, 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 blah. And then I would be like, no, fuck you. That's not the way it is. Like, watch your boundaries, like, don't cross that line. And so it just created a lot of resentment, and it created a lot of gossip, I guess, like in my own family too, because people talk, and things would get said, and then it would eventually get back to me, and then it's like, well, if you have something to say, why can't you say it to me, type of thing. So just all this toxic shit, that would come up. And
What a bunch of fuckers. Well, Adam, hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good, right? And I choose to be here with you. Hashtag choice.
Hashtag no liquor store.
And I mean, you kind of described briefly about
Not
your
today.
family, but I know, did you have anything more with, like, has it,
No, just
the dynamic? I mean,
episodes, basically, my brothers don't really talk to me. I don't really have much of a relationship with them. The family's not close, which is not good.
mm-hmm.
So I've kind of created that for myself. So nobody says anything. I mean, if I do, usually if I like get drunk, I try to like, okay, don't say anything to anybody. Just go downstairs.
Just withdraw. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I'm so scared, like something's get like, they might call the cops or something.
Yeah.
And I end up in detox or jail or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, more than likely detox than jail. But I mean, and that's if there's no episode.
Yeah.
If there's an episode, then I'm in handcuffs and then I'm in jail. But I'm usually, in a blackout, so I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Usually pretty emotional, which I'm not sure exactly how I get there. Because again, I could have a good time on a drunk, or the get real emotional. It just
As
it's
your
a coin
friend,
toss.
yeah, as your friend, I know kind of like which direction it's heading, because I'll get texts from you
There's
that I
warning
know it's
signs.
kind of like, oh, like
uh-oh.
he's going there.
He's on the path.
I know another area of relationship is friends. So this is complicated because I think having friends and having people in your life is fantastic and it's absolutely necessary. But I think friends can be enabling, and the tough thing for me was once I started to get into recovery and started to make sobriety a focus was, trying to make like healthy plans,
Yeah.
trying to make plans that didn't revolve around drinking or getting fucked up or going to the bar. And it was very hard to do that. It was like culture shock because everyone was still kind of, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people were still focused on that lifestyle of still getting, fucked up or whatever. Even if it wasn't at the level that it was when we were in bands and shit, it was still like social, like, to get together, go to happy hour or whatever. So a lot of that behavior from our 20s carried over into our 30s and then just never really stopped. I mean, the dynamic of it kind of changed, but the habits were still kind of there. And then one of the challenges that I found was just like, okay, well, can we do something that doesn't, that is where alcohol isn't a priority? Like, why don't we think about hiking, or why don't we think about, because there were still things that were important to me that I wanted to do, but I wanted to start going in another direction is basically what I'm trying to say. And it was difficult to do that with like, well, the people that I know are still kind of not fully, maybe not even fully wrapped in it, but still it was like, so I had to like draw boundaries, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like in early recovery, I had to start asking questions like, well, what's the plan? I mean, are we going to a bar or whatever? Because in the beginning I was just like, nope, I no bars. I'm just not even going to go there. It's not a healthy environment. I hear that clinking and that, the cheersing and that kind of shit. And even that shit's like a trigger for me. It's like the lights and it's kind of the nice, pretty way the bottles kind of light up at the bar.
Yeah,
and it's like
absolutely.
that social kind of thinking gets going. It's like, no, man,
It's
I
that
can't.
atmosphere you walk into.
The atmosphere, the music's kind of going and everyone's like being social and talking. And it was just like, no, man, that's a trigger
You're
for
making
me.
me thirsty.
That's a trigger for me. So like in the beginning, it was like, nope, no bars.
Right.
Sorry,
Yeah, no, me too. Same here.
And so trying to make that transition from, social drinking and, happy hour and all that shit to like, okay, why don't we think about hiking? God forbid, we go to the gym or we take the dogs for a walk or just go to the park or just go fucking chill, man. Like there's a lot. Once you like get into recovery, you get so much clarity on like, holy shit, there's this whole other world out here that I wasn't experiencing,
Right.
I mean, I would force myself to do things that were outside of my comfort zone just to do them, if nothing else, just to stay occupied. It's like, okay, I'd go to a meeting, or I would just do something that I had never done before,
Right.
I took like cooking classes. I did, I even thought about like acting classes, shit like that.
Sure.
Social groups that weren't like, drinking oriented. It was more like, okay, hiking groups, running groups. And Colorado, holy shit, look around us. I mean, there's fitness everywhere. There's
Rocks,
gyms, there's
trees,
mountains. I mean, all kinds of shit. So I hadn't really given that much of a chance, really. I kind of rediscovered fitness all over again when I got sober, because it was just like, it allowed me to keep my health somewhat on track. And shit, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I really would have survived like some of my binges, because some of those, some of those were so intense and so dark and so deep that even doctors would tell me, we don't know. Thank God you're healthy outside of this, because if it weren't for your physicality and like athleticism, we don't think you would have made it.
You're like, well, what do you think I'm doing? Running an amateur shop over here?
Well, we
How do you
talked.
think I get away with it every time? Why do you...
We talked about the extremeness of all that shit. So that's kind of where I come from with the friends, and a result of that, is kind of walking that lonely path. Like, it can be a lonely path, like when you're in recovery, because not only are you depressed from, years and years of abuse to your body, to your mind, it's an adjustment, and it can suck because you have to change up your whole routine, change up the activities you're involved in, the people you're involved in. I really had to dive deeper into my psyche, and identify priorities. What is important to me? How can I change things up?
And it gets easier through time. Like, a lot of what you're saying is not wanting to put yourself in those triggered situations, to start another relapse. But, I remember at one point I couldn't go out at all. And this is a really good, environment's a very good thing. And I think when it comes to friends, when you're talking about environment, you're talking about people, places, things, but that would be people. So when it comes to friends, that certainly applies. But you almost have to remove yourself from your current environment, at least for the first good 6 months. Maybe longer. It just depends on the person. You want to be able to, like, when you finally, you'll feel it, you'll know deep down in your heart where you're like, oh, I can go out in that atmosphere and I'm going to be fine. But it does certainly take a while. And it's hard because I continued to hang out with the same people, and then I found myself being kind of like the babysitter, because everybody was, or the designated driver, however you want to look at it. And
isn't it interesting how sloppy people get? Like, when you see it and you're completely sober and you're just like, oh my God, like, did I act that way?
Exactly.
Like, you can see them, like, their speech starting to slur.
Well, that's why drunk people are annoying.
Stumble, or like, it's like, oh my God, dude.
When you're not drunk and you're not on that same level, then
get on my level.
Hanging around drunk people is like just a nightmare.
Now it's just comedy.
Comedy. Well, it depends. I mean, if you've got friends that get so trashed they'll start vomiting in your car, that's not funny at all.
Yeah. I suppose, now that I think of it, so another challenge I faced with friends was like thought association. So I would think, I would want to make it like it was when we were playing, like in bands and shows, and like I somehow associated the drinking with like being out and like nightlife and performing in front of, whoever. And even with studio stuff, I think even now it's like I try to go and write, and I've had some success, but I'm still like recovering. And it's been a challenge because I used to use alcohol as a tool to feel looser with my emotions and feel like I could write meaningful lyrics, because there was so much baggage attached to it before, where it's like, oh my God, I have to go to this place, like this dark place, to write. And I would use the booze as like a way to like cope with that, and a way to facilitate this connection between myself and like the creative. And that was a challenge, like writing sober again, you know what I mean? Singing sober again, being creative sober again. It was just like, fuck it. At first I was like, can I even do this?
Yeah.
How was this possible before? So that was a challenge as well.
Well, what were the other things pertaining to relationships that?
So there's many relationships. I know another kind of area of this that has really negatively impacted my life is just the employer relationship.
Yeah, go into that.
You know,
Because I mean, other than romantic relationship and family, I mean, and friends, employers probably would probably be at the bottom of that list.
yeah. So, as I mentioned before, my background is in finance and accounting, which, you know, is already kind of a high stress, high pressure field to be in. And so after mom died and I was trying to manage a job and all the subsequent family issues that came up, you know, after her death, I was just burning the candle at both ends. You know, trying to maintain, trying to put on an outward appearance of normalcy, and just couldn't do it. Eventually it just got to the tipping point where I just didn't give a fuck. And that's when the really heavy drinking started. And obviously that impacted my ability to be reliable for anyone. So this is where the employer thing comes in. My ability to handle stress was, it was just near impossible to do it. You know, and obviously it affected things like my performance, my attendance. I mean, I would try to drink on the weekends and then just be so fucking hungover on Mondays that I just, you know, and then trying to just maintain that throughout the week, you know, trying to show up for department meetings, to try to, you know, do this and do that and run a schedule. And I've got other shit to do as well. And it's like, it was just overwhelming. And that's really when my employer issues started.
Dude, you weren't drinking enough.
Oh God, believe
just
me,
kidding.
I was drinking enough. Trust me. And
There was times like I'd be at work, just blacked out.
dude, oh my
I'm
God.
surprised. There was actually a few times where I was like, man, I'm surprised I didn't get fired yet.
Yeah.
I should have been fired a long time ago because I was getting drunk and working.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is, like, I don't know if you notice this, but as a person who abuses alcohol, you become so fucking clever with, like, how to manage it. Like, how do I just be trashed all the time and get people to deal with me?
Yeah,
You know, how do I
don't know.
how do I work this into my life to where I can just be drunk all the time and yet somehow still be functional and have a job and have a personal life and have a girlfriend and do this and do that. It just, that in itself was just exhausting, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how we get away with it sometimes. Like, you know, getting pulled over by the cops and not getting a DUI. We've been there before. I don't know how we pulled that off. How do we pull that off?
I
Like,
don't
how
know.
how does a police officer make contact with somebody who's in a blackout and not know that they're in a blackout? That just, I mean, it's happened before. I don't even remember what the cop looked like.
I think what I'm most embarrassed and ashamed of is how I let it get so out of control, you know, because it got to the point where I, you know, again, like I would get clever with it and try to be slick and try to sneak away at lunch, you know what I mean? Or like take a break and like run across the street to the liquor store, or fuck, I'd have, you know, booze stashed in my car in the dash console, you know, or under the seat or in my backpack or in my briefcase, or fuck, dude. I mean, it really just became like a 24/7
Maintenance.
deal. You know what I mean? Of like,
Maintenance drinking.
how do I work this into my life to where I can just be trashed all the time, be numbed out and deal with my personal shit, yet somehow still be a working professional
and have zero consequences.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that's obviously not the case. I mean, in my own story, fuck, I can, from what this is just what I remember. I can recall I've lost probably
So much credibility.
well, that plus 6 or 7 jobs.
You're in the
that,
negative cred.
Like, I mean, and good paying jobs.
Cred
you know?
loss, man.
Good paying jobs for good people. And I know I let a lot of people down, and that's the most embarrassing thing is like, I had it made. Like, what more did I want? You know,
Yeah.
I'm a young guy. I'm making X amount of money. I'm able to travel. I'm able to do this and do that. You know, I have sponsors. Like what?
You fucking self-destructive bastard.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. I own it at least.
That's like what have everything going for you, and then to, you know, not
Like
see
that's-
that. But
that's-
that's the thing. That's called, you know, when you play the tape through, you gotta think about that stuff, man. Next time you're feeling like drinking, That's what you gotta focus
That was the
on.
monster that it became. I mean, people want to know how dark and how sick and how twisted this got. That's how dark and deep that it became for me. Was, multiple job losses, 20 some odd hospital visits, 5 ICU stints. I mean, I've literally been at death's door, and it's like, fuck, dude, like what is it going to take here? Is it going to take death?
It's gonna take.
That was the reality of it. Like, that was the reality I was dealing with, was like, and it got to that point to where, like, you have to choose, and for some people that bottom is death.
Bingo, you hit it right. That's exactly.
Some
what I was
people
gonna
that
say.
bottom is death, and it's like, it got to the point to where, like, I had to choose, do I want to live or do I want to die? Because that's where this is headed. And that's how fucking real it got. Was like, if you keep doing this, you're a healthy guy, but your fucking feet are on the cliff.
Yeah. Right.
If you do this, you're either going to be dead or have lifelong health issues. And that was the reality for me, where I was like, fuck, this is not a fucking joke. This is not, social thing. This is not me dealing, with it. This is my life, and that's how real that it got. And that's how raw that it got for me. So
I wanted to real quickly, Adam. I just wanted to give a national helpline to those who may be in a crisis or whatever's going on there. But if you are needing to reach out right now, you can through a national helpline through I might butcher this, SAMHSA. There's an H in it, but anyway, you can call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 4357, and they're basically like a referral service. I mean, it literally can be for anything, any kind of crisis situation, whether you're, need a place to stay, shower, eat. I mean, you name it, call that helpline, and they should be able to help you.
So now that we're climbing the ladder, we have to offer this disclaimer. So anything we say on this should not take the place of medical advice and should be considered anecdotal. If you or anyone you know is having a mental or physical crisis, get to your nearest emergency room or dial 911. Thank you. We'll be back.
All right. You're listening to The Raz. I'm Ryan.
I'm Adam.
Have a good day, guys.